Have you ever been playing for a short amount of time and your hand starts to get really tired or cramps up, or this muscle in your fretting hand gets really sore? Now this totally sucks. I've been there and there's nothing worse. This lesson though, you're going to learn all about something called the painted room concept. It's going to help boost your stamina, eliminate cramps, and stop any of those pesky muscular pains in your fretting hand. The painted room concept goes like this. Imagine you've got a big room to paint. You've got 4 big walls, and you've got 3 brushes to do it with. You've got a big roller brush, one of those big ones that covers a big area. You've got a medium-sized brush, and you've got a tiny little brush. Now, would you use the tiny little brush to paint the whole wall? Of course you wouldn't. You'd do the majority of the work with the big roller brush, right? And then when you got a bit closer towards the edges, you might switch to the medium brush. And then to get right to the edges and do all the finer details, you'd use the tiny little brush. This makes sense. It's the same when it comes to playing bass and your technique. You want to use the big muscles to do most of the work, like the big roller brush painted most of the wall. In your case, the big muscles in your body that are going to be doing hopefully most of the work are the ones in your shoulder and the ones even in your back. When it comes to pulling a sound out of your bass, these muscles are so big and powerful they hardly have to do any work to get a decent sound. Now the medium brush are the muscles in your arm, so your arm, your forearm, your bicep and your tricep. Again, they're quite powerful, so they don't have to do a lot of work to get a decent sound out. Finally, the muscles in your hands and the muscles in your fingers, they're the small brush. They're incredibly important and they take care of all the finer details, things like where the fingers are going, but they shouldn't be doing most of the physical work. Most of that work should be taken up by the bigger muscles in the chain. A lot of stamina issues come from people using the muscles in the hand, the very small muscles, to try and do the work that big muscles should be doing. You see beginners do this all the time. They squeeze the living life out of the fretboard and they're white knuckling the whole time and then wondering why their hands get sore after 10, 15, 20 minutes of playing. There is an answer to this problem though, and it's a great solution. It's a 2-part problem and it's going to show you exactly how little you need to work in order to get a good sound out of your bass. Now the first part of this 2-part solution, very, very simple. All I want you to do is take the index finger, finger number 1 of your fretting hand, and pick a note on the E or A string to play. Here's the catch though, you're not allowed to use your fretting hand thumb. In fact, don't even touch the bass with that thumb. So if you've got no thumb to help you out, how do you do it? Yeah, so pause this video for a second and just try for a minute or two, see if you can get a good sound without using that thumb. I'm very serious about this. Pause the video right now and I'll see you when you come back. How did you go? Did you manage to figure it out? If you managed to get a sound out without using your thumb, awesome. If not, that's totally fine as well. Now here's what I show my in-person students. If you can't use the thumb and the muscles in the hand, then it means you need to rely on the muscles that aren't in your hand. See how I'm not using my thumb at all. I'm just using the muscles, the big muscles further up the kind of muscular food chain. I'm not squeezing here. I'm not getting this kind of white-knuckled tension right there. I'm using very little pressure and I'm actually using the big muscles to get all of it rather than the small muscles in the hand. What ends up happening is that the big muscles, the muscles in your shoulder, your back, your chest, your bicep, tricep, and to a certain extent the muscles in your forearm, they end up taking a lot more of the work. Yeah, so you're pulling back with those big muscles, it actually pulls this back, and the plucking arm, it actually kind of acts as a counterweight to bring everything back, and so we can actually have that resistance. So we have that resistance, so the sound comes out. Does that make sense? So this one pulls back, this one acts as a counterweight. This is just an exercise at this point. I wouldn't recommend you go your whole life without ever using your thumb when you play bass. And that's where the second part of the solution comes into play. For this, we actually are going to use the thumb, but a lot less than you might be used to. I call this the minimum pressure exercise. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that same note, and we're going to use the thumb and we're going to gradually apply more and more pressure until we get a sound out of the bass. Start off by just kind of grazing the string. You're not actually even pushing it down at this point. You're just kind of touching it and letting your fingers meet the string. Yep. So keep plucking as you're doing this, and as you do it, apply a little bit more pressure, little by little, a bit more. At the start, you'll just get a bunch of nasty thwacks, kind of like this. This one's actually getting a bit of that harmonic, which is fine. If you put any other fingers down, it'll just be nasty thwacks. But as you start applying a bit more pressure and the string actually meets the fret, you'll start to get the start of a note. some more nasty thwacks. Oh, we're starting to get a sound now, starting to get a note. Now you want to keep applying pressure until the note is clean and doesn't get cut off. So for me, it's right there. I stop, oh, a little bit more. Right there is the place that is going to provide the minimum amount of pressure. If I do it on the E string, it might be a bit easier to see. So the string's meeting the fret there, getting the note out, but it's still kind of dirty. There is the minimum pressure right there. Very little pressure. In fact, I can do it without even using the thumb. I'm using the absolute minimum amount of pressure to get a good clean note. You know the best part of this, the amount of pressure I'm actually using here is tiny and I don't need to use any more. Whichever amount of pressure you're using to find that note is as much as you will ever need. It's a lot less than you might have thought, right? When you combine the idea of using the big muscles in the muscular food chain and using the minimum amount of pressure in the fretting hand, it means you use a fraction of the energy but get the same amount of sound and the same amount of music. This means no more getting tired after a couple of minutes playing, no more hands cramping up and seizing up, no more muscular soreness in your fretting hand. This is going to become super important and super valuable for you when we start looking at the more advanced exercises that I've got in store for you. For now though, keep this in mind as you play. Are you squeezing the life out of your fretboard or are you using the bare minimum of pressure? Are you using the muscles in your hand too much or are you using the big muscles to take care of most of the work? We'll put this into practice in the very next lesson, so I will see you there.